I grew up in a middle-class family, the kind of family his children would start out jobs at grocery stores or coffee shops. But when I turned 18, being the black sheep of my family, I took a job at the gas station. Customers were generally friendly, but every job had the older men who took the time out of their day to make innuendos to more attractive girls. I never felt in danger until one night. I was working an overnight, and just like any other night, badly any customers. Lots of cleaning and keeping busy in order not to fall asleep standing up. Around 2 a.m., the phone rang, which wasn't an oddity. Some people called to make sure we were open 24 hours. I answered, giving my general greeting. There was a pause. A few harsh and sharp breaths at the other end. Then,
You ignored me today.
I'm sorry. May I ask who's calling?
You are so loved. I loved you so much and you just ignored me.
He began to sing, voice slurring, from what must have been from a blood alcohol level way above the limit of sanity.
You are loved. So, so loved. I love you.
I got scared, and without hearing another word, I hung up. I told my coworker, and he said,
It was probably a joke, or some guy just wanting to scare.
I went on with my work. After my coworker gave me the button to hook at the back of my pants that would call 911 upon being pressed. But I would still jump every time he walked behind me or the door would open. Finally, when I started to calm down, again, the phone rang. My coworker was outside and the phone had to be answered. So hesitantly, I answered.
You need to get out of my head.
His tone was angry now, demanding, as if I had done something to him. I didn't say anything.
Get out of it. You won't leave me alone. Don't you understand?
I hung up, set the phone down, telling myself that I was making it a big deal than it was. I was, wasn't I? Instantly, the phone rang again, and with burst of anger, I grabbed and answered it. Without giving him a second, I demanded a reason. What do you want from me? I practically screamed into the phone. I was tired, annoyed, and over being afraid of a man who took a phone as a weapon.
You seem stressed. I'm coming to see you.
A click and a long dial tone greeted my eardrum as my lip began to quiver. The rest of the night, I felt like I was trapped in a box. Like I didn't have enough air to breathe. Like the door opening would be the end of me. But he didn't come. The phone didn't ring again. Customers came and went, each as innocent as the last, tiredly handling me cash and asking me to put it on their pumps. When my shift came to an end and the sun had risen, I felt freedom. Stepping out of the store and making my way to my car, there was a note on my front windshield.
I told you I would come see you.
Man who called my job, let's not ever meet. Over the summer, me, my fiancé, and my stepdaughter, then 2 years old, went on a vacation to Presque Isle in Pennsylvania. We stayed there throughout the afternoon and decided to get dinner in a nearby town. Now, it was kind of a pretty sketchy area. There were a lot of people that were super ghetto. Example, face tattoos and looking pretty high. But there were also kids and it was still a little light out, like 6:30 or 7 p.m.ish. Me and my fiancé sat down and watched our kid play for a bit. At some point, our kid wants me to run in the water with her, so I do. I kind of keep going back and forth between playing with her and keeping my fiancé company. After playing with my kid for a while, I came back to my fiancé. She looked kind of pale and said,
"Go get the kid. We need to leave right now."
I didn't know what was going on but still go to get the kid. As I was turning to get her, I noticed a group of 3 really weird guys staring intently at us. When I looked over, one of them stood up a little bit and was giving me a stare. I grab our kid and start following my fiancé who is booking it. As we were walking away, she tells me that
"Somebody is following us now."
I look over and see a creepy looking shirtless dude getting in this old beige sedan behind us. My fiancé explains to me that the same man kept approaching her whenever I get up to run with our kid. At first, he introduced himself and tried talking to her. She thought he was benign but just trying to hit on her. When I came back, he apparently bolted. I sat with her for a couple of minutes and then went back to play with our kid. Apparently, as soon as I went, he returned. He asked her if she was married to me. She said that we were going to be, and hoping that it was the end of that. He goes away before I came back to sit with her again. The third and final time I go to play with our kid, he apparently came back. He told her that she was a beautiful lady, and asked if that was her daughter, pointing to our kid. My fiancé said yes, and the guy said that our kid was also a beautiful lady, and that his night was gonna be made. Whatever that means, cue when I come in and we book it. We're walking back to our car, which is kind of far away. Erie in general was pretty abandoned outside of the park. And we noticed the car pull out and start driving extremely slow in a street parallel to us. At this point, I don't think he knew we saw him. My fiancé is freaking out, and I tell her to wait near the vestibule of a closed Starbucks where we weren't in this guy's vision. We stayed there for 5 minutes, and I was watching the roads, not seeing anything. We continued walking but are still on high alert. I found my car parked outside of McDonald's, and we were now power walking to it holding our kiddo. I looked behind, and lo and behold, the same beige car going at 3 miles per hour. Just barely inches out from the side street so I can see it. As my kid and fiancé are getting in, I turn around, stand at the back of the car, and shoot this guy the death stare. After looking at his car for about 10 seconds solid, he peels out and speds off past us, nearly hitting me. Not sure what this guy's problem was, but if you're in Erie, watch out for some scummy looking man that's about 6 feet tall, very wiry, possibly Hispanic, and driving a beige tan car. I assume that he wasn't tailing us for any good reason. Afterwards, I bring up the 3 guys that were staring at me. My fiancé said that the pervert following us was sitting with them when he wasn't coming over to her and saying creepy sh*. I was recounting some old daycare stories to a friend, which jogged my memory on this incident, so I decided to share it. I used to be a preschool teacher at the daycare I taught at. In the mornings until 3 p.m., I worked with the babies, and then once the elementary school kids arrived, I worked with them. This took place a few months ago. The daycare I worked at had a basketball court at the base of a hill, and it was situated next to a major road. I had taken our 5th graders down to the basketball court and all was fine. I am monitoring the kids and occasionally glancing at the road because although we were separated by 2 different fences, a dedicated individual could climb over both. And although the daycare was located in a wealthy area, we did occasionally have some homeless addicts wander into the parking lot. You never know what those kind of people could do. I got distracted, trying to defuse an argument that had broken out between a few of my boys when a few kids ran to the fence and were waving frantically and calling greetings. So I turned to look, assuming they saw some other teacher leave. Instead, I saw an unfamiliar gray car with the hazard lights flashing. The passenger window was rolled down, and a red-headed woman was leaning over from the driver's side and waving at my kids. I shooed all the kids away, not liking the feeling I got. They all assured me they knew who she was, an old teacher. But from what I had heard about previous employees, I didn't recognize her, and I had only been there for around a year or so. The woman made eye contact with me for a minute, and her smile just dropped. She didn't look threatening, but she looked remarkably unhappy. After what I felt like a lifetime, but could only have been a few seconds of her staring at me, she drove off. It felt very bizarre, so I called for one of the admin over the walkie-talkies we had. My supervisor and the assistant director came a few moments later, and I explained what had happened, and they called over one of the boys who had greeted the lady. He again explained she was an old teacher who used to work here and that she drove by and frequently stopped on the road to say hello. The director asked him to describe her, and he did, and she frowned and said she'd check the cameras. Later, after closing, the assistant director told me that there had never been an employee there matching the description, and that she didn't recognize the car on the cameras. She couldn't catch the plates of the car, so we didn't have much information to give the police. Not to be dramatic, but this story freaks me out because this woman had come by the daycare enough that the kids recognized her and had talked to her. It is also unsettling where her car was positioned on the road. We have plenty of cameras filming the entire property, and many of them catch the road, and she was parked just so that none of the cameras could catch her license plates. It felt very deliberate because you have to try to avoid our cameras that much. I've since stopped working at this daycare, but still, lady who visits the daycare, let's not meet again. Edit. For clarification on a few things, yes, we did notify the police. We never heard back from them on that matter. I don't work at this daycare anymore, but according to a few friends of mine who still work there, the woman hasn't been seen since November when this happened, which was again reported. We absolutely didn't ignore this incident. Promise. This took place when I was about 11 or 12. I was walking home from school one afternoon, which didn't take very long as I live in the same neighborhood. I was on the same road as my house when a car pulled over to me, and the guy driving complimented me on my shoes. He seemed to be in his 20s or 30s and had a really friendly atmosphere around him that I didn't initially question. My shoes weren't anything special, just black skater type shoes with 3 pink stripes on either side. He said his daughter would love those shoes and he wanted to buy her the same kind. He inquired if he could ask me some questions about them. I got a weird vibe immediately, but being so close to my house and being unbelievably naive, I agreed to answer his questions. He pulled over and parked just up in front of me and opened his driver's side door. He beckoned me over and started asking typical questions such as where I got them, how much, were they good quality. I didn't know the brand of the shoe, so I slipped it off to check the label while balancing on one foot. He said he wanted a closer look, so he kept trying to get me to go closer. He asked to see my shoe, and being so young and stupid, I agreed. Luckily, I didn't go closer to the car, but instead, I passed him the shoe. He kept suggesting that I should rest my socked foot on his car, as he was concerned if my balances faltered, my sock would get dirty. This had gotten too weird for me, and I began asking for my shoe back, suggesting my mother was waiting for me. He then proceeded to bring my shoe up to his face and inhale deeply. He turned to me with a huge smile, complimenting me on how wonderful my shoe smelled, how soft and sweet my feet must be, and similar comments. At this point, I was done with this interaction, whether he gave me my shoe back or not. So, I once again asked for my shoe back, as I didn't want to explain to my mother why I came home with only one shoe. He eventually handed it back to me, after first trying to wear it on my foot like Cinderella. Me, obviously declining, and drove off. I was so embarrassed at my stupidity and naivety that I didn't tell the story until years later. I hope no other kids were as idiotic as I was that day. Creepy foot fetish guy, let's never meet again.